Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, so this is an interview with Ethan, right? You want to be called Ethan?
Yes.
And so, can you tell us what is your experience in the supernatural aspects of it?
Well, I've had quite a lot over the past 8 years, but we are going to be talking more about astral projection today. And I've been having supernatural experiences since I was 10, about to turn 11. But I've been having astral projection experiences since I was about 12. And yeah, I can dive on into any one of those experiences whenever you're ready.
Okay. So, Rosaline, do you have any facts?
Well, not right now. I haven't really heard that much, but just so you know, the most knowledge that I have about it is mainly based off of Insidious, so I'm glad to listen to a real life account.
I haven't seen Insidious yet. I want to, but I haven't seen either of them yet.
So, Ethan, tell us about your astral projection experience.
All right. Well, I'm actually going to talk about one first that I had this past fall, so fall 2017. And I'm mentioning this one first because it's a little bit more grounded in everyday. It has a little bit more scientific proof to it. So this one happened when I was taking a nap one day. Yes, I'm in college, so I take naps. So this was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I laid down to take a nap, and it was overcast outside. I should make the story. And so I laid down to take a nap. It was probably about a half hour into the nap. I woke up with these intense vibrations going through my body. And like I said, I've had out-of-body experiences before this one, so I was familiar with the vibrations moving through the body, but this one was a lot stronger and more intense than any I've ever had before. I thought my heart was going to stop. I mean, that's how strong these vibrations were. And I really actually didn't know what was going to happen at first. But then as soon as I got out of my body, I knew, okay, that it was just an out of body experience. You know, I've had these before. And then usually, at least when I've had out of body experiences in the past, your soul just floats upwards, you know, not at any particular speed, really. It just kind of floats gently upwards. But this time it was actually accelerating upwards, and that was a little freaky to me, to be kind of accelerating upwards through the sky. Like I said, it was overcast outside, so I kind of floated through the clouds. You know, I don't know if you've ever been up a plane, but when the airplane's kind of breaking through the cloud cover on an overcast day, that's kind of what it felt like. And then as soon as I broke through the clouds, I could see the moon. And the phase of the moon, to me, what it looked like, I estimated it to be about a percent waning crescent. And what that means is that 10% of the left side of the moon is lit up. So, yeah, that's the phase of the moon that I saw, and I kept floating. I floated up into space, and I floated past the moon, and I kind of looked over my shoulder, caught a glance over my shoulder at the back of the moon, and I was wondering if that's where I was supposed to go on this journey. And some voice told me, no, keep going, you're not supposed to go there. But this glimpse of the back of the moon that I caught, I don't know if you have those satellite images of like the Earth at night. You see all like the lights and the cityscapes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what the back of the moon looked like. So that kind of gets into conspiracy theories a little bit about the backside of the moon. But yeah, I got that in my head saying, no, you're not supposed to go there, keep going. So at that point, I really accelerated. I kind of just shot outward felt like at light speed, and all of a sudden I was at Jupiter's orbit. I was past the asteroid belt, and I kept floating past Jupiter. I saw Saturn up ahead, and I kind of decided, no, I don't want to go out anymore. I'll just come back. So I woke up in my bed. It was about 3:30 now, and I looked at the phase of the moon. I have this app, Star Walk, and it shows you the phases of the moon. So the phase of the moon for that day, and it was an 11% waning crescent. And the moon that I saw during the experience, I estimated it to be about a 10%. So for it to be that accurate, what I saw, that's why I wanted to mention that experience first, because it has more scientific evidence to it, at least for me. But yeah, that was that experience, and just surprised me when I saw that, how accurately that I saw the phase of the moon just from that experience.
That's really interesting. I guess you continue it.
All right, so I guess now I'll go back to my first out-of-body experience. I actually remember the date for this one. This was 25th, 2010, so I was 12 years old. It was actually the middle of the night, so probably more like May 26th. I don't know if it was after midnight or whatnot, but I'd been talking to this being named Ashtar. He's a Pleiadian being from the Pleiades star cluster. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I saw this, like, it almost looked like sun rays. Like, you know, when it's sunny out and you go in a pool, you kind of see the sun at the bottom of the pool. So I was sleeping on my side. I had the blankets over my head, and yeah, so kind of out of the corner of my eye, I saw what looked like a light pattern similar to sun rays at the bottom of the pool, and it was like a greenish gold kind of being reflected on the wall. And at that moment, I kind of remote viewed. I didn't go outside my body yet, but I remote viewed outside of my body and was looking back at myself, and I saw that the thing that was creating that pattern of light against my bedroom wall was Jesus. That sounds trippy, but yeah, it was Jesus. He had this aura of like greenish gold light around him, and he was floating above me in the same orientation as I was. So I was sleeping on my left side, and he was kind of just floating in the air on his left side, similar to how I was, just oriented parallel to me. And as soon as I saw that, he just plummeted down into my body, and immediately I was just back in my own perception. I wasn't remote viewing outside my body anymore. I was back in my own body, and it was glowing that greenish gold color, and it was so overwhelming to have that energy inside of me. I kind of just had to take a big gasp of air, and then the energy kind of died down, the color went away. But Ashtar, that being that I was talking about, I heard him say from somewhere, I don't know where it was, I couldn't see him. I just heard him say, all right, he's ready. And as soon as he said that, that's when my soul actually lifted out of my body, and it lifted through the covers, and I started to just slowly float upwards. And each time I floated a little more up, there was kind of this hum sound associated with it, kind of like a just each time I lifted upwards a little bit more. And so I floated towards the ceiling in my bedroom, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to hit the ceiling. And then, no, I just passed right on through. I was in the attic. I just saw pitch black darkness around me, and I felt myself continue to float upwards. And then eventually I floated through the roof of the house. I saw the night sky. It was a clear night. I heard like crickets chirping and stuff like that. and then I floated a little more ways upwards, and I started to hear this humming sound, and above me I saw this large, round, very just clean silver craft with just lined with blue light, just in circles. And that's all I really remember. After that, I woke up the next morning. So I guess that was kind of like an out of body slash alien abduction experience with Jesus in it. Throwing that randomly, but yeah, that was my first out of body experience. And that was about 2 weeks after my 12th birthday. So any comments?
So were you like freaking out?
Oh yeah.
When it was happening, or just calm and?
At first,
like, you didn't know what was happening, right? Like you'd never heard of it before.
No, I'd heard of out of body experiences before that, but this was my first time. So as soon as I lifted out of my body, yeah, I was freaking out, and I was scared that I was gonna hit the ceiling. And then of course I just, like I said, passed right through it into the attic, and I was a little more calm. Yeah.
You said how old you were?
I was 12.
You were 12 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like I said, I don't really remember what happened after I saw that craft in the sky. I just woke up the next morning, and my mom believes in this stuff, so I told her all about it, and she just was overwhelmed describing all that to her.
Yeah,
and
I
you
bet
could,
it
like,
was probably scary.
What?
I said I bet it was probably scary.
Yeah, definitely at first.
Yeah.
The next morning, it was actually kind of exciting. Like, oh my God, I had an out-of-body experience. I saw a spaceship, like stuff like that. But yeah.
Like with your senses, did you you could feel things happening to you, or was it just like you were there and like passing through things, or like when things touched you, did you get hurt at all? It was just
No, like I could feel, like when Jesus plummeted down into my body, I could feel that, like having the energy of my soul and his soul in my body. I was looking for air because it was just so overwhelming. But once my soul floated out of my body, I mean, I felt kind of like vibrations of energy, but passing through objects, I didn't feel anything. So I didn't feel the ceiling when I passed through it. I didn't feel the roof. So I didn't feel physical objects. I just felt.
Oh wow. Okay.
I believe energy is everything, so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I definitely believe matter is just manifested or materialized energy. The two kind of go hand in hand, but
Now, was that so that was your first one, and your last one was the one story that you told us before, or like
yeah.
how often do you do it, and do you have any warning that it's gonna happen? You control it, or things
Well,
like that?
for astral projection, it usually just happens whenever, because all my other information and knowledge I get from other types of experiences, which I mean, I'm not really going to go over in this talk since this is about astral projection. So yeah, I don't really get much of my knowledge through astral projection itself, so I don't really try to have any control over it. I kind of just let it happen whenever it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And
has it gotten like more frequent, or like less frequent, or it varies, you know?
It kind of happens like in periods. Like every few months, I'll get like a few, and then they kind of die down. Then a few months later, it'll start happening like a few days in a row, and then go away again. So it kind of just alternates like that.
That's really weird. But then again, I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect it to like have a schedule.
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't have a schedule there. It doesn't seem so to me, because even the number of months in between each that it happens, it's kind of random. Like it may be 4 months or 8 months or 6 months, but Yeah, definitely.
So, what would you say is like your craziest experience with it? Like have like you
Um,
it's like so far from reality that made you kind of question
I
it
would
all?
say the time where I actually physically traveled when I was asleep. Like in astral projection, your soul detaches from your body and your souls. But I had one time where my body actually traveled. So like if my parents were to go in my room that night, like I wouldn't have been in my bed. Like it literally physically traveled somewhere else.
And you woke up somewhere else?
Yeah, I can describe that experience if you want.
I mean, I would be interested in hearing it. What about you, Moy?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I actually like with the astral projection experiences, I remember like waking up and then my soul detaching from my body, but this time I woke up in the place that I went to. So I went to bed one night. It was probably happened after midnight. I'm not quite sure. But I woke up and I was in this, I guess I could just call it a realm. It looked very earth. Just it was more vivid. Like the colors were more vibrant, stuff like that. Like I could tell it wasn't Earth, but there was grass everywhere. There were trees. Everything was green, just like on Earth. So it was Earth-like, but I could definitely tell that it wasn't Earth. And I knew I was there physically because I was having all the physical sensations that my own body has. And that was so overwhelming to me. I mean, I'm not a person who normally cries, but it was so beautiful to think that I had physically traveled to another world. I fell down on my knees and I almost started crying because my physical body was in another world. And it was just insane to me in that moment. I had no words. I just fell down and just started crying. And there was like this round, I guess it like an oval garden near me, and I walked over to it, and this oval garden had this white this white wooden fence around it, and I walked over to it, and this was a large garden. It was probably about like 250 feet long, maybe about 100 feet wide. So this was a large garden that I walked over to, and in the middle of it, so a good 50 feet away from me, was this woman, and I mean, she was human. She had this kind of lavender, pinkish purple dress on above her knees. She was tan. She kind of looked Middle Eastern or Jewish or something of that type. And she had large glasses. She looked like she was from like the 1920s or something. And she told me that she was my great grandmother on my father's side. And my father's side of the family is Jewish. So I guess that would make sense why she looked like she had kind of like a Hebrew ethnicity to her. And I don't really remember what she told me. We had a conversation, but I remember it when I woke up. But it was weird to me how, if this was my great great grandmother and she was dead, why was she in this physical earth like afterlife? And it almost made me think like there's afterlives between heaven and hell. Like they're more of like a neutral afterlife. That's just more earth like, more physical, like what we're experiencing now. And the only thing I remember was that after the conversation I had with her, she said, "It's getting dark out. You better leave now." And darkness fell very fast in that world. Like as there was this hill behind me that I'd kind of turned to leave, and I ran up this hill. And by the time I reached the top of the hill, it was already nighttime. Like that's how fast it went from day to night in that world. And I kind of looked at the sky and I saw two crescent moons. There was a bigger moon and a smaller moon, and they were kind of the two crescent moons were like turned in on each other. And I feel like if both moons were full, seen the smaller moon kind of touching the bigger moon. So it's like this world had two moons that were touching each other. And yeah, so I saw that, and then I looked up ahead across the hill, and I just saw this weird, like, liquid looking portal, you could call it, and I ran through it. And when I went through the portal, I was a few inches above my bed, and I kind of just floated down onto my back. And I never wake up on my back, so that's how I knew I didn't wake up. You know, I usually wake up on my side or on my stomach. That was kind of personal proof to me that I actually had traveled. The fact that I, air quotes, woke up 3 inches above my bed and just kind of floated down onto my back. So, I mean, that was a very, very interesting experience to me.
Wow, and that was the only time you've ever had something like that happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to get them more now, but they're not quite the same. Like in terms of physically traveling, um, I have had some recent travels that have felt physical, but they weren't like that where my whole physical body had actually been transported somewhere else.
I just think really amazing.
What was that,
Yeah,
Rosalind?
did you hear his experience?
Oh, yeah, that is really interesting. Like,
Yeah, it was weird to that basically proved to me that there's not just spiritual afterlives, there's physical earth-like afterlives, and that my great-great-grandmother was in that one.
yeah, it's strange.
Yeah.
Like, we have to wonder if astral projection going to afterlife is the same.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel it could be. Honestly, too, I feel like it's like any world can kind of be considered an afterlife. It's just wherever you're on to after your body dies.
The question is though where, like, there's a lot of theories on where you go, or you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from my experiences, I've seen that reality is infinite, and I think your soul can go anywhere after it dies. There's no one place that people go to. And if you read stories about near death experiences, when people go into the afterlife, pretty much everybody describes it differently. I mean, there's some consistencies between people's stories, but they all describe it differently. And science tries to use that to say, oh, look, you know, there's no such thing as the afterlife. If there was such a thing, all their reports would be consistent. But that's not necessarily the case, because if reality and the afterlife are infinite, you can go literally anywhere after you die. And people are going to go to different places, I think, just because everybody has a different soul and everybody has different qualities, different personalities. So, I mean, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I
So
know
is
this
there?
video is about astral projection, but that's like a whole big topic. The afterlife, like,
Yeah, I mean, that's
like
why I chose astral projection for this talk, because it doesn't have to stick exclusively to astral projection. Like, we can actually like get into the afterlife and, you know, stuff like that, remote viewing. It all kind of ties in, like you said.
So is there anything else you want to add on to this?
Um, I mean, I think like I said, I've had a lot of experiences, so I don't really have any others that I would think I need to pick out right now. Um, unless you wanted to ask me some questions or something.
I don't think I have any particular questions right now.
no. The sad thing is I know when we hang up, I'm probably gonna think of something. But right now,
I mean, take your time.
Yeah, let's look for questions.
Yeah, just Google that. No, I'm kidding.
I was actually Googling it.
I would. So you mentioned your mom was like accepting of it, but what about your dad or any other family members that you have?
Well, I live in a family of four, so I just have an older brother as a sibling. My mom most accepting of it. My brother accepts it too, but he doesn't know the extent to which these experiences go. Like he doesn't know how crazy it gets. My mom does. And then my dad, he started off skeptical, but I basically proved him wrong. Um, because he's lost objects and like I've helped him find them through like telepathy and remote viewing. So over time he kind of became more accepting of it, but he's still the most skeptical one out of my family. He's not really skeptical anymore, but he's the most skeptical.
So I
Do you
mentioned
have
before that like, well, no. Like, have you ever felt dangerous? Because why I asked that is because I mentioned before like the movie Insidious, and it's probably not like that, but it's basically like the first one is like a little boy and their family, and like he astral projects,
Hmm.
and it invites in demons that are trying to like basically steal his body, basically. And like, have you ever like attracted anything bad or like felt any danger doing it?
The only time that I felt danger, and I forgot to mention this in the last experience that I talked about where I traveled physically, when my great great grandmother told me it's getting dark out, you better leave now. She didn't tell me why nightfall was so dangerous in that world, but I got this feeling that some sort of creatures or came out at nightfall, and maybe that's why she was kind of just standing out in the middle of that large garden. Like maybe that garden had like a protective force to it or something, and she didn't really want to come out of it to talk to me. So that's like the sense that I got that, if I stayed in that world at nightfall, maybe I would have encountered some danger. But other than that, not really, no.
Right, like that was the most high stakes encounter you had, so
Yeah,
like there was that possibility.
yeah.
so like yeah. So do you do it when you're sleeping? Have you tried doing it when you're awake?
Yeah, it takes a different form when I'm awake. It's more like I don't really leave my body. I kind of just expand outwards for lack of a better term. Like it's like I stay put where I am, but my mind kind of reaches out to another location where I'm basically like bilocating. I'm like in two places at once. I'm where I originally was and then in this other place at the same time. And that happens a lot to me too when I'm getting ready for bed. Like usually it happens when I'm in the bathroom. I feel like I almost travel to Loch Ness. I don't know why Loch Ness, but that's like the recurring place that I feel like I keep expanding or extending out towards. And it kind of freaks me out because even though I'm not traveling there physically, I feel like there's almost like this physical copy of my body that's being created when I travel to Loch Ness. So I still physical sensations of being in the lake and stuff like that. And every time I go there, I see the Loch Ness monster. And I mean, to feel like you're there physically with that lake monster, it really kind of it's very uncomfortable. So,
Okay.
but yeah, excuse me, that happens like every other night.
Okay. I have you ever like felt any type of emotion or like fear or maybe pain? Astral project like physical pain.
Well, that kind of goes back to the Loch Ness monster thing too. That's the only time I feel fear is feeling like I'm in the lake with that thing. And there was one time where this is why I think that I almost create a physical copy of my body in space rather than actually leaving, because there was one experience where I was seeing myself there and the monster kind of just swam by and bit off my arm, and I went into a shock and kind of just came back to my bathroom, and my arm was okay, but I felt the pain of actually having my arm being bitten off, and that's why I feel like maybe I create like a second physical body in that place. That's like the only time I've felt any fear or pain doing it, though, and that's technically something else other than astral projecting. I would call that bilocating, being in two places at once, but it's similar.
Okay.
Kind of an ugly experience, but since you mentioned
Yeah.
fear and pain, but yeah, that was freaky.
So like when you're astral projecting while you're sleeping,
Hmm.
do you know the difference between dreaming and astral projecting?
Yeah, because I mean, first off, usually when I'm dreaming, I wake up in the dream. When I'm astral projecting, I wake up in the room and then the experience happens. Also, when I'm in a dream, I'm in a completely different, world. Like, you know how dreams are. You're in like a place that you've never seen before. It's kind of all wacky, it doesn't really work. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But when I astral project, I see the everyday world. Like I said, I wake up in my room and then I'll feel myself detach from my body. I'll get like the vibrations and the feelings of energy going through my soul, and I'll usually float upwards through the ceiling and then go wherever it is I'm going to go. So it's kind of just how it starts out. That's how I know the difference.
Okay.
So do you notice that this takes like a lot of energy from you? Because if it's happening while you're sleeping, are you really getting like the rest that you need? Do you wake up feeling like I'm ready to face the day? Or do you feel like drained?
I've actually never thought about that until you just asked that question, but now that I think about it, I actually remember waking up more exuberated. Like I feel more excited about it, and I don't know if it's just the idea that I just had an astral projection experience, but for whatever reason, um, yeah, I wake up just more excited about life. And I feel more positive. I feel like I actually have more energy. So I
So, I-
think if anything, it gives you energy, strangely.
so would you say you look forward to like astral projecting? Like, is it something that you
Yes.
think about
It's
every
like
once in a while?
I
That
guess
you
the best way to describe it, it's like a roller coaster ride. You look forward to it, but it all freaks you out at the same time.
I do like roller coasters, so.
I like
Yeah,
roller coasters.
yeah, it kind of gives you that freaky adrenaline rush. You're kind of facing the unknown, but at the same, the experiences are so spectacular, you do still get excited about them.
So, Ethan, do you have any questions for us?
Um, well, like I said, everybody's experience will be a little bit different, but what types of experiences have I talked about that resonated with you two the most?
Um, I feel like part of me have astral projected before in like
Hmm.
accounts of dreaming, and for when it's not a regular dream and when
Yeah.
it's a regular dream, like those it's really hard to explain. And also I have experience like being awake and seeing other things, like
Hmm.
traveling, but I don't really know what it means to me. It kind of confuses me.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Rosaline?
Well, like I said, I have very limited knowledge of astral projection before this conversation, but I do feel like I've never done it myself per se, but I think I've like visited other people's dreams. I don't know if that really counts because I've never like
Yeah.
astral projected. Like I've been to other places, but it's not like when I'm sleeping. And it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been not on purpose, you know. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes, but that's a long story.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that's similar to out of body experiences too. Like you said, it's not the same thing, but like where you share a dream with somebody.
Oh, like me and
Right.
Rosaline, we share
Yeah.
dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
Mhm.
that it ties in somehow, like shared dreams, out of body experiences, astral projection, teleportation by locating. It's all similar. It's basically just different methods for your soul to travel, basically.
Do you think it has to do with like bonds or maybe like your body recognizing things or um what do you call it?
Kind of
And
like as in deciding where your soul goes during the experience.
yeah, like your soul is deciding for you.
Yeah, because I mean everybody's soul has a certain energy composition that carries a certain frequency with it. So your soul is more drawn to places that resonate with that frequency. So it's kind of like it's the same reason why people have favorite colors. Like people have favorite colors because the energy of your soul has certain colors that resonate with those colors, and that plays to where your soul is drawn to travel to when you have these experiences. You're kind of going to these places that your soul agrees with.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's all fascinating how all that is together.
So like the type of places that you go, like as you're saying, like is your soul like evolves, you get older, things like that. So they've like has it like is it ever like the same place that you go, or is it always different? And like how it they change like as you got older?
Um, well, for one, the experiences have gotten more vivid as I've gotten older. Because, like I said, from that first experience where I I really only remember the beginning of it. I saw that spaceship, and then I just woke up and all the way to the dream where I physically traveled to that afterlife world. They've definitely gotten more vivid. And I feel like maybe too, if anything else, the places that I travel to have also gotten more diverse. I guess as I've become more thing of different types of frequencies. There's a lot more different types of places that I travel to now also.
May I ask how old you are?
I'm
Or
19.
you're 19.
Yes.
Wow, we're in the same age level here.
Yeah, because you're 18, right?
Yeah, we're both 18.
Yeah, we both.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, something about this younger generation. That's what Apex was saying too.
Yeah, it's like maybe a new world brewing.
Yeah. And I know too, it's like we're technically too young to be considered millennials. So like right now they're just calling us Generation Z. And I kind of want to coin a name for our generation and call us the boundless generation because of just how, we don't really seem to be limited by this world like past generations have been. We're more accepting of this type of stuff, and we have more supernatural abilities that kind of free us.
Yeah, I actually want to get into that, like, if it's the same with the age levels, because it seems like people from 16 to like 21
Yeah.
age range is just, there's something about them that I don't know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
I'm also glad to be living in this generation because I mean half the things that I know now I wouldn't know without the internet, like right there, and also we have the ability to contact other people that we
Yeah.
think are like us, you know, and it's not like we're living just based off what our parents say most of the time. Like if
Mhm.
they don't agree with what we like our gifts, things like that, it's automatically gonna be like a bad thing and shut down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like my family really don't like the idea. They think it's evil, so I'm evil.
Yeah.
Ha ha.
I was definitely lucky to have a family that was very accepting of it. Dad, who was more skeptical of it from the beginning, he's still, I would consider him more open than, at least 90% of people out there. Maybe that's a little exaggerated, but I don't know.
But it's also really true because a lot of people think that people that are gifted with unknown things are either crazy or evil.
Yeah. And I mean, really, that's just because they haven't experienced it for themselves. And I mean, you can't really ask a person to believe in this stuff. It's very rare for somebody to believe in it just off word of mouth without having experienced something similar for themselves.
Yeah. So do you have any more questions or do you want to wrap this up?
We can go ahead. I feel like we've got enough for your audience to digest.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ethan.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you, and I hope we can talk to you again, maybe about some of your other supernatural experiences sometime.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, I can relate to almost any topic, so anything you want to talk about.
That would be
Alright, well,
awesome.
thank you.
Oh, and my channel is Everything Explained by Ethan Kahn.